welcome along to the Canadian Grand Prix for FCL. So, we're gonna get into the race shortly in around, I believe, 10 minutes. And yeah, I'm just gonna send the stream over to the league itself. There we go. So we're gonna see, hopefully, if anyone can see it, and then we'll check Twitch chat to see if any of the drivers are in there. Hello if you're watching on the YouTube as well. It's been a while since I've done a commentary like this, but I'm glad to be back doing this type of thing. It's been, I want to say about 5 or 6 months since I've done a proper commentary like this, but I am back, and it's, a lot has happened since the last time I did this. Last time I did this type of thing was with PRL, when that used to run a league with the Brazilian Grand Prix way back in, I believe, I want to say April or May, I want to say. But yeah, lots happened. I've commentated twice in real life, done lots of media work with the Plymouth Gladiators Speedway, and yeah, commentated at the Tragrain Hill Climb for 2 days on my own, and then I also commentated alongside the wonderful Pat Jennings at an event that for the motor club that he is the president of, the North Devon Motor Club, at the Masters Sprint, which was a couple weeks ago now. So, but yeah, now I'm I've moved up to Northamptonshire. So yeah, I'm kind of starting things off again now. So yeah, unfortunately that means I'm not going to be able to do anything with Soundwave Radio. I was due to be hosting a radio show on there, but that's come to a halt now. But yeah, I'm up in Northampton now. So yeah, I'll see what can happen up here. But yeah, that does mean when it comes to Plymouth Gladiators, when it comes to hill climbs and sprints, most of the stuff that I did in Devon and Cornwall, that is probably going to come to a bit of a hiatus at least. Hopefully not an end, but potentially. But yeah, I guess I'm awaiting to return maybe someday. But for now, I think I'm just going to focus on trying to do things up in Northampton. And this is, I guess, the start of that. So hello to everyone. You should be able to type in Twitch chat if you can. And yeah, it should be a decent race itself. So we'll see how many people are in today in season 1 of this league. So we have Alpha Dead in the Aston Martin, we have Tyrone Walker in the Haas, King Blue in the Cadillac, with his teammate Unhappy in the other Cadillac, and a home race for Unhappy today, the Canadian. Meanwhile, we have the second American on the grid in the Aston Martin with Perea. I hope I'm saying that right. Pure Air, that's how you say it. And then comes Blade J in the McLaren. Then comes Simmy Boy in the Red Bull, and then at the top of your list, the league owner of Jack's GP Racing. I think we're meant to have Swagman Joe as well joining us in the Alpine soon enough. I think from what I'm seeing, he's just restarting his game. But we should see from him soon enough. So yeah, it should be a very interesting thing. This is race 3 of season 1. So race 3. So let's see what happened in the previous 2 races. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, it's Revamp on 43 points, leading the standings ahead of Eddie in the Red Bull, who appears not to be here. Then Lucky Lucas in the Racing Bulls, who's also not here. So the man in 4th in the championship, Simmy Boy, as well as Unhappy in the Cadillac, they look to be able to bring home a lot of points today and help their championship bid. As Simmy Boy, he has a chance to get up to 2nd in the championship in this race alone. I doubt he'll be able to overtake Revamp, but he can get quite close to him. As Semi Boy on 25 points. So actually, if he did win, he could get on to 50 points today. If he did win today, and as far as the championship order goes, he looks to do that. But Unhappy is 5th in the championship, so he is looking to potentially go up the order as well, up to P2. I think he might just be a bit too far back. No, he isn't. He's just able to potentially have a shot at the lead of the championship as well. If Simi Boy doesn't finish and Unhappy wins the race, Unhappy could get 25 points. And given he's on 20 points now, that would put him to 45 points. So he would be leading the championship by 2 points. The two men in 4th and 5th in the championship have a chance to take the lead of the championship today. So we'll see if they can do that. Meanwhile, we have Jack's GP Racing and Blade J as well. Those two are fighting to potentially go up the order as well in the championship. And we're also looking to see if King Blue and the other Cadillac can score his first point of the season, as well as Alpha Dead in the Aston Martin Pure Air as well. He's looking to add to his championship tally. And Tion Walker as well. He's looking to add some points to his championship tally today. As Revamp Revamp is here in the Mercedes, as well as Soulless Ginger in the Alpine. So Revamp has a chance to defend that championship lead, but if he doesn't finish today, the man who's 4th in the championship and the man who's 5th in the championship both have very good opportunities to try and go up the order. Meanwhile, we just had Ghosts join the lobby. Ghost is in the Audi. And I think I can't see another Audi on here, so I reckon this is his first race. If I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, to be fair, though. Yes, that's how the championship order is looking then. So Revamp in the lead of the championship. Then Simi Boy and Unhappy are both 4th and 5th. But if they get a good enough result today and things go their way, in quite an extreme way, they could go up to at least the top 3 in the championship and have the chance to be in the lead of the whole thing by the end of today, by the time they head out of Canada. But yeah, we're here in Montreal, a track that has hosted races for many years and has had quite eventful races over the last few years, with a championship battle, with the championship contenders of that season battling in the last 3 races in succession over the last 3 years, with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli battling this season, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri battling last season, in 2025, and then in 2024 we obviously had Verstappen and Norris battling alongside George Russell. They were the 3 main contenders for the title that year, Verstappen coming out on top. But yeah, we have championship hopes can be dashed around this circuit in some ways, as Lando Norris nearly had them dashed 2 years ago. And yeah, it can be a tricky race in Canada. Let me just double check the weather, because that can also be a very big factor in the race. It's on dynamic, and the radars are approximate. But, well, they're approximate for the drivers, but for the commentators, such as myself, I can never see the radars in the weather. So when I see rain, or when I see someone pit to inters, it is the shock of the century. Unless I have an earpiece to the drivers, which today I do not, because I don't have the equipment for it today. But yeah, so we're provisionally up to 12 drivers. I think Eddie in the Red Bull, is he the man 2nd in the championship? He is. So the top 2 in the championship are here today then. So the gap in the championship is, I want to say, it's a big gap. It's Revamp on 43 and Eddie on 27. Lucky Lucas as well, he's on 26. Simi Boy is on 25, and Unhappy, as I said earlier, on 20. So the drivers from second to fifth are very close, very close. Within 3 points of each other is that gaggle of 4 cars, and 2 of them are Red Bulls, and 3 of them are Red Bull branded cars, and then the other one is a Cadillac. Right, so yeah, let's see what happens then. This is, at least for people who watch my YouTube channel for a while, this is my first commentary on the F1 2026 cars, and normally I don't turn on the dashboard, but due to the amount of reliance on the battery in these cars, I think it is vital to be able to show the battery of the drivers. So that will be at the bottom of the screen today, unlike usual. And yeah, it should be a very interesting race indeed here in Canada. We're approaching the 6 o'clock mark for the American times, 11 o'clock here in the UK, 11 o'clock PM. So yep, it is night, and it probably will be 1 AM by the time I go to bed today, but you know, I love racing, so it's worth staying up for. Should be ready to go any minute. Just waiting for the confirmation from the league owner. So we're waiting on the V-Carbs. So the 2 Toro Rosso cars, or Racing Bulls as they are known now, formerly AlphaTauri, and I want to say about 20, maybe even 30 years ago, they were Minardi. The beloved back markers, Minardi. As I do call them Toro Rosso, as I grew up watching them in around the 2010s era, so to me they will always be Toro Rosso. At least as long as they have a Red Bull logo, that will be Toro Rosso to me, because for those who don't know, Toro Rosso in Italian means Red Bull, and obviously this team bought Minardi, and Minardi were Italian, so it made sense at the time, because it does have a nod to Minardi, but also a nod to Red Bull, if you know what I mean. Before they wanted to advertise their clothing company, which is where they changed it to AlphaTauri, and then they decided to not change back, and instead go to Racing Bulls, which is an okay name, but in my nostalgic mind, Toro Rosso was always better. But you know, that's just my opinion. Yes, we have more manufacturers in the F1 game this year. If I turn to this page, as you can see, we have McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, the usual 4. We have Williams and V-Carb, or Toro Rosso, as I mentioned earlier on, Aston Martin, which are now a manufacturer team, but after that team was risen from the ashes by Eddie Jordan, they have grown to be a force to be reckoned with until this year at least. And then comes Haas, who are somewhat partnered with Toyota, or Toyota Gazoo Racing, who help run the World Endurance Championship program and the World Rally Championship program for Toyota as well, and have done for a good number of years now. Then we have what used to be Sauber, but now is Audi, and Sauber rebranding to a car brand for the 3rd time in their lifespan, as they used to be BMW, then went back to Sauber, then went to, I believe it was Alfa Romeo, and then they went back to Sauber before becoming Audi, as they announced a few years ago, and have now followed up with. Then comes Alpine, which are Renault's sports car brand, as Alpine, who are leaving the World Endurance Championship this year. They are now, the F1 team as well. They ended up dropping the Renault engines in favour of Mercedes engines for this year, so that's why you'll probably hear a Mercedes tone underneath the blue and pink of the Alpine. And then comes the newcomer, Cadillac F1. Cadillac, who have been growing their programs in motorsport after their sports car program, their much loved sports car program from 2023 onwards, must I add, as Cadillac. And I am a fan of Cadillac purely as I did like the V8, but also Jota and that team alone. They are one of my favourites just due to their story, but also just the atmosphere they bring. And also Jenson Button used to race there alongside who the drivers of now, which are Will Stevens. I think even Callum Hilott used to race there as well when they were running customer Porsche entries in the World Endurance Championship. As you can tell, I'm a big sports car fan, so seeing Cadillac on the grid is nice, although it's a little bit of a shame that they didn't really tribute to any of their sports car liveries, and because I do love the liveries where they have like a colour on the front and then it fades to black on the back. Instead they've done the half and half thing, which is okay, but it's been done better before in my eyes. But yeah, so we have at least the top 5 in the championship here today. I think we have a decently sized grid and a very diverse grid as well. If you look at the countries, we have 2 South Africans, I want to say 3 Americans, what flag is, there's someone from, is that Norway or Denmark? That's Denmark, I want to say, but I could be wrong. Then we have the red, yellow and green. I'm not too sure what the flag that is, to be honest. And then we have the home hero today, Unhappy, in the Cadillac. And then we have an Indian as well. I'm half from Trinidad, so yeah, I'm kind of half Indian, kind of not. Well, half West Indian, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we also have an Irishman as well as an Australian. And then we have Eddie, who's an international man. And then comes Lucky Lucas, who's from Switzerland, the same country as Sebastian Buemi. And Buemi did used to race for that team when it was called Toro Rosso. And yeah, at least we're not racing in China, so that both the wheels fall off, if you know what I mean, from that crash even many years ago. I'm just going to have a little look at how Sebastian Buemi did in his last Canadian Grand Prix. There we go. So let's see, Sebastian Buemi, the last Switzerland driver to make an appearance in the Canadian Grand Prix of Formula 1 was in 2010 when he got a P8 finish. In 2011 he only managed to secure a P10 finish, but he scored in the points in every single race he did in Canada in Formula 1, which was 2 races. So let's see if Lucky Lucas can make it 3 times in a row where a Switzerland driver has got into the points of the Canadian Grand Prix from real life and sim racing in FCL combined. So yeah, it should be quite good. We had the IndyCar race at the Markham Street Course in Canada, and that was a very chaotic race with many drivers coming out a cropper. And then it turned out to be Marcus Ericsson who got the win in the end, ahead of Roman Grosjean, 2 former Formula 1 drivers who often struggled around the Canadian Grand Prix. That ended up going very well at the Canadian Street Course in Markham in IndyCar. Let's see if we can have an equally chaotic race here in Montreal then, with these smaller, lighter, more battery dependent 2026 Formula 1 cars. So we are loading in to this sim race with an 18-minute qualifying session here in Canada. Jax Racing, Simmy Boy, Blade J, Pure Air, Unhappy, King Blue, Tyon Walker, Alpha Deads, Revamp, Ghosty, Eddie, Lucky Lucas, Solace, Ginger, and the Rig all getting ready, getting set in their garages for this Canadian Grand Prix sim race in about 5 seconds time. Here we are then. We are here in Canada, and let me get some information on the table. Let's have the tyre they are currently on. Let's have the dashboard telemetry on for the first time. Normally I keep that off as I find that an obstruction, but actually it's quite a useful bit of information within this game now, here in the 2026 Formula 1. Here with this regulation of cars, you can hear them all revving out down the pit lane as we have Jax Racing, I believe. Oh no, that's the other Audi that'll be Ghosty, who's going out at the moment. We see him going around that section. But the Audi, with an Audi engine as well. Sauber, they used to run Ferrari engines, and they have done for the last 10 years. But now they are running Audi engines. And Audi, I think it's one of their first times in Grand Prix racing. If not their definite first time in Grand Prix racing. It was the first time since I believe the pre-war era, when Audi were under the name Auto Union. And Auto Union can explain a bit of their logo as the 4 rings. The meaning of those 4 rings are every ring represents a former German car manufacturer that ended up joining Auto Union after the war. And Audi was one of those car manufacturers, but has risen to be the most successful of those manufacturers in Germany. And obviously the German state themselves used to sponsor this car maker. So, and in their war with Mercedes, it was one of the best decades of building straight line speed monsters and straight line speed road races as well. And now Audi are back in Formula 1 with Mercedes to battle it out here in Grand Prix racing under some very different regulations, but regulations at least maybe on the aero side that might have been somewhat influenced by that pre-war battle of the machines between Mercedes and Audi. As Ghosty now heading down into the first chicane. He has invalidated this lap. So we are going to have a look to see potentially Unhappy, I believe. Heading through the last chicane then. Let's see what the hometown hero can do. He'll be the man to set the benchmark here then. Over the line he goes. Unhappy set to 112.055, and that is completely wiped out by Revamp, who's set to 110.1. 4 tenths behind that is Simi Boy, and the top 2 now representing the top 2 in the standings as well. Blade J not able to get ahead of Unhappy. He's 2 tenths away from that time. Let's have a look and see. There's a V-car here, the Rig now, who's heading into the pits. Now we should have King Blue heading around the last chicane. He has invalidated that lap, sadly. Let's see what Pure Air can do in that Aston Martin. The lean, mean green machine flying into the last chicane then. Chucking it down the gears. He's got about 20% battery to drain heading to the line, and it's already ran out as he heads to the line. He gets to P6, and it's the slowest time set so far in the first 4 minutes of this qualifying session. As I want to say, who else is on our lap then? There's Ghosty. He's invalidated again. It's not ideal for him at all. So I believe Unhappy's going back over the line, 5 seconds down, but he looks to be setting up for another lap. Revamp, he's not gone any quicker. Let's see what Alpha Dead, he's just gone over the line as, I think, yep, Lucky Lucas has just gone over the line, and he's blocked a Red Bull as well. So he's gone up to 4th, but he has blocked, or nearly blocked the Red Bull of Eddie, but luckily Eddie wasn't on a lap, but Eddie is now 600th away from Simmy Boy. So see what happens then. So we've got Pure Air again, heading down towards the last few corners. He's 4 seconds down on his lap so far, and it looks like he's on an in-lap as he's not using any type of battery heading into the last chicane, and he is actually setting up for another lap. So we're going to cut away from him as we have Jack's GP having to abort his lap. As you can see, the map is red. That means his lap will not count as it's cancelled over a track limits infringement. And the same goes for his Audi teammate as well. Meanwhile, the Toyota Haas car of Tian Walker, he comes into the pits with an aborted lap. We're going to have a look potentially at Alpha Dead. No. Let's have a look at the V card then. He's not on a lap either. Have a look. I think most of them are coming into the pits, to be honest. Solus and the Alpine as well. Let's see about Blade J. He's in the pits. Vamp, I think, is going to follow them in the pits. Let's keep an eye on Pure Air then. Pure Air in one of 2 cars today, running the Honda engines. Honda engine in real life in Formula 1 has just received an upgrade, although Fernando Alonso still struggling with vibrations in that car. So let's hope that the same issues don't befall the fates of Pure Air and Alpha Dead today. As over the line then, he's running low on fuel, he's 2/10 quicker, so that's a 1:12.7 for Pure Air. So it's a decent lap, but it will not put him any higher up the order. What about his teammate then? As he's got the fastest sector 2 of anyone according to the minimap. That's why you might have saw a purple thing on the minimap for Alpha Dead, should I say. Let's see. As he heads into the last chicane, what will Alpha Dead do? Heading... Oh, he's invalidated on the last chicane, the Wall of Champions. He's avoided it, but he's cut too much of the track in trying to avoid it, and he still remains without a time. And the only Aston Martin to not have a time on the board as of yet. What about Unhappy? He's on an outlap, so that would matter. Revamp goes quicker with a 1:10.0 to rub it in even further. As I believe Pure Air, he's not on a lap. As I believe we should see King Blue on a lap as well. We have a Red Bull coming out the pits. He's trying to stay out of the way because it's so tight around Canada. It is very hard to stay out of the way in some cases. As we have the rig here. Let's have a look at Unhappy then. Unhappy in the Cadillac. Let's see what he can do heading into the last chicane. Goes up to about 310 kilometers an hour before breaking down to about 160 kph, and then accelerates into the line at over 280 kilometers an hour. He goes over the line 3/10 quicker. That puts him 5th and a 10th behind Lucky Lucas. But Lucas hasn't done his 2nd lap yet though, so I reckon Unhappy might want to try and squeeze in another lap, and he probably could with 10 minutes to go. Let's have a look at his teammate then. So we have the rig ahead of his teammate, heading around the last chicane. The number 19 car heading over the line, draining his batteries on 0% as he heads up to the line and goes to P6. And only a 10th behind, only 900ths behind Unhappy in the Cadillac. As King Blue goes in between the Aston Martins and ahead of Tian Walker with a 1:12.77. 700ths away from Pure Air. As let's see if the Audis can get a time on the board. Jack's GP, he looks to be on a lap at the moment as he heads towards the last chicane. Let's go on board with the 4 rings as they fly towards the final chicane. Breaks from the 100-meter boards. Very nice through that chicane indeed, and then he heads towards the line then. Will he get over the line quick in time? He will get over the line in time for P8. Make that P9 as he gets beaten. Who was that? I'm not too sure who's just shot up the order. I think that was Blade J. That's who it was. Blade J's gone up the order and gone only a mere few thousandths of a second ahead of Lucky Lucas, and he's only I want to say 200s behind Eddie in the Red Bull. So Blade J has just had a mega lap there. Let's see if Lucky Lucas can do any better. As we see Blade J now having to go in a bit tight because of that Aston Martin there. That's a lap aborted there for Blade J, I believe. As we have an Aston Martin trying to get around him, not able to do so. Lucky Lucas, that lap, 2.2 seconds down. That's not a lap to watch. As we scroll down the order, I believe King Blue and Dion Walker are back on laps. Dion Walker's closer to the finish line, so we're going to watch his lap before we cut to King Blue later on in his lap. As we have the Toyota Haskar is just navigating that hairpin on the soft tyres. Everyone in this session will be on soft tyres, so we can take that graphic off and let you see more of the action uninterrupted. He breaks into the last chicane a bit like, oh no, he's coming into the pits. Thought he was on the lap, he's not. What about King Blue? He's low on fuel, it looks like, so yeah, he's coming into the pits as well. What about Ghosty? Is he going to finally get a time on the board? He's heading into the last chicane, and he is going to finish his lap. But he invalidates on the last chicane yet again. So Ghosty really struggling on that last chicane, as he now only has 6 minutes of the session to set a lap time. Desperate times for the Audi driver. He needs to get around and set a time very quickly indeed. I'm not too sure how much fuel he has, but I'm hoping he has enough fuel to at least set one more lap before he gets back to the garage, because he needs at least a banker to take him off at least the back row of the grid, hopefully. So we're going to watch Revamp then. It looks like he's flying through that last corner, chucking the battery on and heading over the line with a 1:9.8. That's, I want to say, 7/10 quicker than Simi Boy in the Red Bull. So the Mercedes here of Revamp taking this competition by storm and has really got on top of this car and how it works. Now the Red Bulls on out laps getting ready to set their times alight, as this lap's invalidated for Eddie, so he's not going to be able to do much with that one. As Unhappy now in the Cadillac heading through the first chicane round the hoop-like corner of turn 2. Meanwhile, we're going to cut to the Alpine of Soulless Ginger. He's heading up to the line then, draining the battery, making his run to the line as short as possible, only improving by 100th of a second. That's not going to take him any higher up the order. He still sits 700ths away from Pure Air. Pure Air himself is getting ready to try and beat that, as I believe there is a lap being set. Yeah, so Pure Air's the next man to cross the line then. No, he's not going to set a lap that decent, I don't think, because he's not using any battery at all. As we're going to have a look, let's have a look at Eddie then. Eddie's invalidated, so he's not going to set a lap time anytime soon. What about Simi Boy? He's 400ths of a second up. He needs 7/10 to get anywhere near Revamp. Revamp, who's on 43 points. Simi Boy, the closest man to him in the championship, looking to try and climb the order. Simi Boy on 27 points. He needs a big overhaul in the championship, as we have a yellow flag. The Mercedes off. That is Revamp pulling over, I think, to let the Aston Martin through. Let's go back with the Red Bull Ford then. Will that Ford power be able to help him? He's got an Alpine in the way of Soulless Ginger. There's contact, and they both end up in the Wall of Champions. Absolute scenes. Simi Boy potentially on an improvement lap. That will be a penalty, 100%, as Soulless Ginger not able to get out the way in time, and Simi Boy running into the back of him on a hot lap. He's not going to be happy with that one at all, and understandably as well. Let's have a look then. Who else is on a lap? As I think Pure's on a lap. Let's see what he can do in the Aston Martin. Can he lift himself anywhere higher up the grid? He's only about a tenth away from Jack's GP. So let's see, can he go up the order? No, he can't. He's 2/10 down on his personal best lap. Solus Ginger, 2/10 down on his lap as well. King Blue, I'm not too sure how good he's doing on his lap. It hasn't said on the timing page. Let's have a look at Solus Ginger then. Can he potentially gain back that 2/10 of a second that he's down on at the moment? Right aboard with the blue and pink car. Up to the line we go, and it's all. Ooh, he's 3/10 away from his personal best time. King Blue then heading up to the line. His current best time of a 1:12.7, but he gets a 1:18.3. So that is not. That's not really an improvement at all. What about Alpha Dead then? Let's see what AD can do. As he heads over the line, he goes to P10. And only 600ths behind his teammate. So very nice there. 65 thousandths behind his teammate to be exact actually. So both Aston Martins in 9th and 10th are very close together. Very consistent by both drivers. What about, so his teammates in the pits. One of the Red Bulls has just finishing that lap. We have the rig going slowly. And we have Blade J heading to the line then. Can Blade J say hooray at this lap? Yes, he can, because it's an improvement by 3/10 for Blade J. And he's 3/10 away from the rig. He's right in between the two Toro Rosso cars, who are in 4th and 6th. Blade J sat there in 5th. Loving life, making life very difficult for the V-Cubs, indeed. As we're going to have a look at potentially one of the Cadillacs who are finishing their lap. As with straight mode activated and the battery emptied, it's P9, 7/10 of a second improvement for King Blue, who is, I want to say, 47 thousandths behind Jack's GP. That's a very slight gap indeed. And he's only 52 thousandths ahead of Pure Air. So that battle from P8 to P11 is P8 to P12 should I say. Very close indeed. Similar to the battle up from P5 to no, not P5. What am I looking at? From P5 to P7 I want to say. As Eddie's out of the session. Eddie has called it a day. The closest man to the pole sitter has called it a day. Let's see if Ghosty can finally set a time. No, he hasn't. He's invalidated yet again at that corner and has no battery to set another lap. That is such a shame for the Audi driver. He's been struggling all session at that corner. Let's see what Revamp can do then. Let's see how it's done. As we have one of the Cadillacs going to the line, I believe that was. It was the Haas of Tion Walker. He did not improve on his lap though, so we don't really have to worry about that one. Let's have a look at Lucky Lucas then. He's a 10th up on his lap so far, heading into this last chicane. What can he do? The number 98 car heads up to the line, empties his battery, and sets a 111.3, so he's 2/10 up, but he does not get ahead of Blade J. That is a shame for him. What about Revamp then? Can Revamp improve? Yes, he can. With a 1:09.807. That is a barnstormer of a lap to end his session, and a session where he has never been any other colour than purple. Meanwhile, Blade J, he's slightly down on his lap. Can he improve it? No, he can't. He's lost just a little bit in that last sector. Has Ghosty got another lap in him? No, he's in the pits. So that is the end of qualifying here for the Canadian Grand Prix in FCL. Revamp taking pole position by 0.4 of a second over Eddie. So Eddie was able to close that gap, but chose not to pursue it anymore. Then comes Eddie's teammate, Sammy Boy, who is in P3 with a 1:10.5. Then comes the rig in 4th with a 1:10.9. Then comes in 5th Blade J in the McLaren
with a 111.2. Then comes Lucky Lucas with a 111.3. Unhappy in P7 with a 111.6. I reckon he should be happy with that one. Then comes Jack's GP in P8 with a 112.0. And then we have the other South African of King Blue taking P9 with a 112.0 as well. And then comes the two Aston Martins of Pure Air and Alpha Dead ahead of the Alpine of Soulless Ginger, who might get a penalty for blocking the Red Bull of Simi Boy earlier on. Then comes Ghosty, who was struggling at that last chicane all session, the Australian, at the tail end of the field. One incredible qualifying session for the Canadian Grand Prix for FCL. Let's see what round 3 has to present as the point-paying race is about to commence. Right then, hello all, welcome along to the Canadian Grand Prix for FCL. So, Revamp on pole position with a 1.9.8. Then comes Eddie on the front row next to him, setting a 1.10.2. So 4/10 of a second, provisionally, should set the pace between these two cars. At least in qualifying it did. As both Red Bulls very close to that Mercedes, with Simi in P3 getting blocked on one of his laps by the Alpine of Soulless Ginger. But yeah, both Red Bulls and the Mercedes are the front 3 cars on the grid. Keep an eye on the battle between P8, P9, P10 and P11 as well. I think that's going to be a very good battle indeed. 5 lights coming on in front of the drivers then. 14 drivers looking at the lights, and 5 lights are gone. We are away here in Canada, and it's a decent start by the Mercedes, and it's a decent start by the 2 Red Bulls, who head into turn 1 and 2 unscathed. The two Toro Rossos having a great start. Blade J has had a shocking start, dropping down the order like a pin. As we head into that second chicane then, as Revamp has led away ahead of the 4 Red Bull cars. The 2 Red Bulls ahead of the 2 Toro Rossos, and all 4 Ford cars very close together, although the Cadillac here of Unhappy looking to make amends as Blade J has dropped down the order like a pin. Now that's a terrible start for him. As now we have the Cadillac of Unhappy all over the back of one of the Toro Rossos. That's the rig getting passed by Unhappy. So Unhappy now should be a bit happier as he's up a position up into 5th. There goes his Cadillac teammate of King Blue having a battle with the Aston Martins. We look from the rear of the Cadillac and the Astons there. You can see the top corner of his screen just behind that graphic. There we go. We should see them now heading down the straight. We'll come back to them in a moment. Cadillac not able to make a move, but we have Pure Air ahead of his teammate and nearly running into the back of King Blue, and both Aston Martins collide, heading out of the World Champion chicane. That's going to give the Alpine a chance, as well as Tian Walker, who was looking for a move on the inside of turn 1. A very good scrap in the lower end of the field here. Both Aston Martins being caught croppers. Ghosty in the pits then for a new front wing. Not too sure why that was. Must have had contact on the opening lap, which was something that I must have missed. But we head through into the second chicane. We're going to go back down to the battle at the lower end of the field, as potentially Soulless Ginger could be looking for a move heading into the second chicane. But this battle at the lower end of the field is quite good, as we have King Blue and Alpha Dead both getting penalties for track limit violations already on lap 2 of 35. Let's hope they don't get any more of them. And we have Tian Walker there nearly running into the back of one of the Aston Martins. Alpha Dead he nearly just ran into the back of. Going a bit deep under braking there is Tian Walker. As we're going to have a look at the Cadillac versus Toro Rosso battle of the rig versus Unhappy. As we now have the Red Bulls battling away and trying to close the gap to the Mercedes. Eddie ahead of his teammate. Let me chuck the tyres on screen. There we go. So
So the front 4 runners on mediums, and then everyone else apart from Ghosty on the hards. Ghosty going for the soft tyres, which is a very odd strategy indeed. He's looking for some hot laps or potentially the safety car. Yeah, Pure Air now looking to maybe make a move, but run into the back of King Blue is Pure Air. Pure Air now heading down the straight. There goes the Cadillac, there goes the Aston Martin. Let's see who's going to come out on top in this battle. Just keeping an eye on those gaps. If you see anything under 0.2, anything under 0.4, it should be, it's wide there for Pure Air. He went for the move and he's now taking his teammate out with him. So Pure Air, trying to make up a position, has now gone down one position and he's now got to try and fight it back. So he's now going to go down the straight side by side, but no, he's not going to make that move on the Alpine. We're now going to have a look at this battle between Blade J and Unhappy here. Two of the midfielders at the sharper end of the field, looking to have a bit of a ding-dong battle. As I was saying, if you see a gap that's under 0.4, that's normally a gap to be that's normally a battle to be watching. And that's what I'm looking for up and down the field. And that's why we're looking at Blade J at the moment, because he got to within 0.3 of Unhappy heading into that last chicane, and I believe he can do it again. As we also have Pure Air now getting right close to Soulless Ginger. Ginger now trying to stay ahead of Pure Air. Pure Air, who made the mistake last time round at the hairpin they're about to go through. But now they have to watch out. Let's see, is Pure Air going to go for the same move again? He is going to try it, but he's not going to make the move stick. Heading around the chicane, heading around the hairpin, but he's got through it better this time round. Let's see then, on board with the McLaren of Blade J. Is he going to make the move stick? Heading into that final chicane. No, he's not, but he has got a very nice run heading onto the straight, and it's side by side between the orange and the white car, and it's the orange car who gets ahead and puts his rival in the wall. As Unhappy, he's not going to be happy with that one at all, and it's understandable as he's just had half his front wing ripped off by being put in the wall. Meanwhile, Pure Air has just been overtaken by his teammate, and his teammate's gone slingshotting around the outside of him. Incredible move there by Alpha Dead on his teammate, but the Aston Martins, they're going to have to calm down at this rate, because they don't want to be taking each other out. But oh wow, that's a huge whack in the wall for Alpha Dead. As now he's going to be under threat from his teammate, and the two lean green machines being lean and green to each other. Lean and green and mean to each other as well. As now Pure Air gets back ahead of his teammate, or for how much longer though. Is into the next chicane, off he goes, and that's Pure Air going miles off the track. Tion Walker now slips by. We're going to have a look at now the Audi of Jack's GP now getting ahead of Unhappy. No, Unhappy stays ahead, but he has got that front wing damage that he's probably going to have to pit for. So let's see then. Down the straight, there goes the McLaren, who's just ahead of this battle. Here comes the Audi, and now the Cadillac does dive into the pits. So Unhappy into the pits, as he's now going to be fixing that front wing. He's now into the pits then. The second pit stop in this race, and the first one for anyone in the top 10, is Ghosty having trouble on that first lap. He pit long ago. Now Unhappy coming out of the pits now, and he's going to be a long way from the back of the field, but he's going to be hoping that he can gain some time back in this second stint. He's not going to be able to carry those medium tyres to the end of the race, but he's going to be looking for a two-stop strategy now to save his race. Meanwhile, we have Eddie here in the Red Bull trying to make amends and get ahead of the Mercedes, as we have Pure Air now behind the Toyota Haas. But Pure Air, who was up in, I want to say P9 not so long ago, tried to make the move on King Blue, and it's gone downhill from there. From this corner on lap 3, it's gone downhill from there. As Ravamp starts lap 7, he's keeping a 1.2 second gap to Eddie in front of him for the battle at the top of your timetable, as you can see in the gap just below the word interval. We have Eddie, that's the gap to the car in front. So, as Meanwhile, we have Tian Walker now looking to try and make a move. He's looking very punchy in that Haas today. There's Toyota Haas going very well, actually, especially in this early part of the season. Toyota Haas, they're looking very strong indeed. Aston Martin looking decent in this race at the moment, at least in the lower end of the midfield. They are looking like one of the more consistent teams, as Alpha Dead being quite consistent. Pure Air was consistent before he started trying to make moves that cost him a bit, but now here comes Tian Walker to try and rain on the parade. He's looking to try and shuffle the other Aston Martin out of the top 10 and score some points for a Haas team that probably needs some points in this championship. As Simi Boy gets a penalty, and Revamp actually has a penalty as well. So Eddie could potentially be leading this race. I think he would be, actually, because the minimum penalty for this game is 2 seconds, and he is under 2 seconds ahead, behind the Mercedes driver. Meanwhile, into the last chicane then, Tian Walker trying to make the move on Pure Air, but Pure Air does get ahead of the Haas car. So an important move for the Aston Martin team, as they are now P10 and 11 and right next to each other without any cars in the way, so they can potentially help slingshot each other up the order potentially. This is still the closest battle on track as of right now. It's closely followed by the battle between the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls are going to be fighting each other that hard, as Ghosty is not too far away from being lapped at the moment. And then 6.8 seconds separating this Haas car from Unhappy, who pit earlier on. Unhappy on those mediums, closing the gap rapidly, as he's just closed 4/10 from me even saying that. So yeah, Unhappy with some unreal pace. Tian Walker though, walking his Haas around the hairpin. He's got a bit deep there actually. Oh, he's nearly ended up in the wall. That was a close one. Meanwhile, here's the Audi of Ghosty, and that's your race leader then, going through the Audi of Ghosty. That was Revamp going ahead. Then comes the 2 Red Bulls. Look. There you go. There's 1 Red Bull. There's the 2nd Red Bull. Both heading up towards your picture. They are ahead of their junior team of VCarb. As both Aston Martins actually quite close together. Pure Air going a bit wide. I'm not too sure as to why he went wide, but we'll see later on, as Eddie has just got a penalty, so he does not have that royalty, that privilege of being ahead of, or being within the penalty gap of Revamp. But yeah, those are the penalties then. So the Rig, Blade J and Jax GP, they are the only ones, along with Soulless Ginger, to not have a penalty yet in this race, and we are 10 laps in. Meanwhile, the top 4 all have a 3-second penalty. King Blue has a 6-second penalty for track limits, so that's 2 pings for track limits for him. As meanwhile, the Rig is, I think that's Lucky Lucas, who's just come into the pits for the Ford Toro Rosso team. So into the pits he comes. Tyres over, and out the pits he goes for the 98 car, as King Blue has got his 3rd penalty in this race, and that is on the 10th lap. So yeah, he needs to be careful on penalties, because he could end up disqualified if he gets to him anymore. The pits for the Aston Martin then, the number 24 car of Pure Air, who has had a very eventful race so far in the lower half of the midfield. He's coming out in P13 and has now got to put into mega laps to try and undercut his teammate. The Aston Martin today is really hotting up. There's over the curb there for Lucky. He's having a solid race so far, actually, to be fair to him, as there's his teammate lapping the Audi of Ghosty. Meanwhile, Ghosty's teammate, Jax GP, having quite a lonely race up the order. Meanwhile, we have Soulless Ginger trying to get ahead of King Blue. This will really help his strategy out if he can get ahead of the Cadillac, but the Alpine, as you can see, has a bit of wing damage on the driver's right hand side. He has a bit of wing damage, so our left hand side of the picture, look, the end of that front wing is missing on that Alpine, and that's going to be affecting the way the car rotates through corners like this, and that's why you can see him kind of, that's why you've seen the Cadillac close in at those corners. So he's going to be struggling with rotation in that Alpine. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the number 66 car fixes that in his next pit stop, or if he just deals with it. But that is a good chunk of the front wing that's missing, actually. So yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't come in and repair that. While the Red Bulls trying to figure this out then. We have... Oh, and Unhappy's just got ahead of Tian Walker. That came out of nowhere. Tian Walker has just got passed by Unhappy. Unhappy now ramping up the order. He's got some great pace on those mediums, but now Tian Walker coming back at him, and Unhappy saying, no, you're not doing that, my friend. You can sit behind me and wait. As Tian Walker now having a bit of dirt, yeah, from that Cadillac. That's going to affect him in his battle against Pure Air and Alpha Dead that he was in only a few minutes ago. But meanwhile, we have someone at the pits. That is, I believe, Ghosty in the pits again. While Jack's GP has a Toro Rosso behind him. The Toro Rosso of Lucky Lucas. And the Audi now trying to fend him off. And down the inside goes the Toro Rosso of Lucky Lucas. Lucas gets back up into the top 6 and makes it 2 Toro Rossos in the top 6 again. And now he's waiting on his teammate to pit. As down the inside goes King Blue. That's a decent move by him on Solus Ginger. And now King Blue actually nearly stopping on the exit of turn 7. And now that leaves him vulnerable heading into turn 9 here, look. So they go around the tiny kink of turn 8 into turn 9. And he gets the move done, but now he has to back off as King Blue sends it back down the inside. Great jousting between these two, between the Cadillac and the Alpine. And all that has brung Alpha Dead into the equation. So let's see if this battle is going to hurt them later on, as this battle for PA could be a 3-way fight in a few seconds time, as we have both Red Bulls actually getting quite close to each other. Look at this. Simi Boy, is he going to try and move on his teammate? Yes, he is. He goes down the inside, and Eddie concedes the place to his teammate. So Simi Boy now has clean air to try and get away from his teammate and to try and catch up to Revamp. So I'm surprised Eddie didn't pit this lap, to be quite honest. It's been a decent strategy by him, especially because he is definitely losing pace on those mediums now, as you might have seen with Simi Boy getting past him. King Blue now heading out of the pits. Down into turn 1 then. He has the Aston Martin side by side with him, and he's off in the grass in evasive action. King Blue behind Pure Air. Pure Air not letting him have any opportunity, sending him to the grass. Revamp in the pits. And does one of the Red Bulls follow him? Yes, he does. That is, I believe, that is Simi Boy in the pits with Revamp. So Simi Boy and Revamp doing the same strategy in terms of pit strategy, and as well, I believe that's the Rig doing the same thing as well. The Rig just got a speeding penalty for the pit lane, so that's going to hurt his race. He's now got a 13-second penalty, which is the largest penalty in the race so far. Given the way Alpha Dead and King Blue have had their races go, potentially they might get, if they end up getting 2 more penalties, which seems somewhat likely on track limits, then potentially that will change things later on. As we currently have a battle between, I believe, King Blue and Pure Air, but we're going to wait to see as well. I think Alpha Deed is coming out as well. So let's see if Alpha Dead comes out. He's going to come out behind this, but on fresher tyres. So this will be a 3-way fight for P11 later on. So we'll keep an eye on this battle. We're gonna head back up the field to see if Eddie comes in the pits, and Eddie does go in the pits. Flat out, I want to say. Well, that might have been lag. I'm not too sure, but that looked really rapid. As heading into the pits then with a bit of battery to spare. Let's see if he comes out ahead of his teammate then. He comes out of the pits. So we're gonna keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, keep an eye on that other blue dot that's just gone past the arrow on your minimap. There he is, look. There goes the other Red Bull heading around turn 1 and 2. So we're going to have a look at Simi Boy now, and he is ahead of his teammate. So Simi Boy gets ahead of Eddie, and now the top two in the race are now reflecting the top two in the championship. Meanwhile, Tian Walker's just got passed by Jack's GP. And oh, nearly a bit of contact there between the Haas and the Audi. The Haas diving into the pits. Meanwhile, look at this three-way battle between Pure Air, King Blue, and whoa, contact there as Pure Air loses a bit of his wing. And now it bounces across the track. Alpha Dead now losing positions, as well as King Blue. Wait, was that Alpha Dead who lost the front wing? I think it was. So Alpha Dead getting damage and Pure Air capitalising from it, taking two cars in one corner. Now King Blue in between two lean green machines is now going to be worrying for his race. Lap 15 of 35, he's now got 20 laps to try and sort out getting ahead of both Aston Martins. So Alpha Dead's got a bit of damage, so that'll help him from being the hunted. But now he's got to be the hunter and close up to Pure Air. As Ravamp sets a new fastest lap of the race because he's bored. As now we have, I believe, Tian Walker, who's going to lap the man behind him in Ghosty, is down the inside there for Alpha Dead. That's a very big move, and he ends up scaring King Blue off wide. So King Blue gives up that position. Now Alpha Dead actually using a bit of battery look between the Aston Martins. They're going to swap positions heading into the final chicane. It's a late braking move by Alpha Dead to take it from his teammate, but his teammate's going to come back at him heading down the straight as his teammate has overtake mode and Alpha Dead does not have overtake mode. Oh, a contact between the Aston Martins, and that sends off Pure Air, who gets a penalty for that, for the corner cut, as that was very nip and tuck between the Aston Martin cars. They need to calm it down because Lawrence Stroll is not going to be liking watching this at all. As now they head through, the two lean, mean green machines now being mean to each other. As we have Alpha Dead going off wide into the green stuff. And now Pure Air gets back round him. This Aston Martin battle is very hot indeed. Meanwhile we have Soulless Ginger getting passed by Unhappy, the recovering Unhappy, who's now cut halfway through the field. After his pit stop earlier on, he'll have to pit again later on, surely, due to the tyre wear of those mediums. I suspect they will be very worn out soon enough, as into the pits actually goes Soulless Ginger. So let's see if he comes out anywhere near this Aston Martin battle that he was involved in earlier on, but Alpha Dead losing a lot of time with that damaged front wing. They're all spacing out here. We're going to have a look then. Pure Air keeping on that light blue dot who's in the pit lane in the minimap, and you might even see the actual Alpine blue and pink car coming out of the pits. No, he's way ahead. Let's see, so the Alpine coming out as Alpha Dead comes back into the pits. Let's see, will Soulless Ginger get out? I think he'll be just behind that Haas car, will he? Tian Walker, oh no, he's side by side with Soulless Ginger. So Walker and Ginger side by side heading into the second chicane. And oh, he tries a late breaker movement. No, he doesn't make it stick. And now Tian Walker behind Soulless Ginger after Soulless Ginger's pit stop. So Ginger has successfully undercut the Haas driver. And that will be good news for the man from Renault and Alpine to see their driver Soulless Ginger in the points. Meanwhile, Revamp is I think he just lapped one of the Aston Martins. He did, so he's lapped Alpha Dead. And he's now pursuing, or he's just pursuing the winners. And here's Jack's GP is just overtaken Unhappy, who has come back into the pits. So Unhappy now onto another set of medium tyres to carry him to lap 35. So he's got just under 17 laps to do on medium tyres. It could be possible, but I feel he could be a bit vulnerable come the end of the race. So keep an eye on him. The only reason he pit out a sequence is due to damage earlier on that he sustained from, I believe, when he battled Blade J. Could be wrong on that one. Oh no, I think it was when he battled the rig actually. I think that's when it was. Meanwhile, we're going to keep an eye on the battle between... on this battle between Tia. Oh, as we just had a swap positions because Simi Boy's back in the pits with front wing damage. So he's just repaired it, and I think he's just served his 10-second penalty as well. So that's a long stop for Simmy Boy, and let's see where he comes out then. Simmy Boy trundling down the pit lane at 79 kph, now accelerating up to about 200 kph as he heads into turn 1. As now we head into the second chicane. Yep, so Simmy Boy now drops to P6 with a 16-second penalty. He has some work to do to try and help his championship charge and help maintain himself. Oh, he's just put it in the wall. He has just put that in the wall, and it's a virtual safety car for Simmy Boy, and he's just crashed it in the wall. Simmy Boy, the man second in the championship, the man fourth in the championship, should I say, has put it in the wall, and it is a full safety car. As you can see, look, the yellow dot on the mini-map, that is a full safety car. So Simmy Boy crashing on that back stretch. His race goes from bad to worse, and he ends up out. The first man out of the race here in Canada is Simmy Boy, the man who was fourth in the championship, looking to score some big points, but has now conceded those points, and is now, I think, going to get overtaken by Unhappy if things stay like this. So that is a shame for Simmy. He'll drop to at least 5th in the standings in the championship here in race 3 of FCL. But the safety car is deployed. Let's see who's coming to the pits. The rig is in the pits. Jack's GP is in the pits. This may help some of the midfielders out as well, as Pure Air and Unhappy don't pit. Unhappy only pit a few laps ago. And Unhappy's actually going to jump Jack's GP. This is actually great for Unhappy, because he's now up in 6th in a safety car. And now he has Pure Air there for company. Pure Air being one of the more aggressive drivers on the grid, as that could be a very interesting battle. Solus Ginger ahead of Tian Walker. Revamp now in the pits. King Blue gets his lap back, but also gets another penalty. As now we have Alpha Dead as well. He's going to get his lap back. As Ghost, I think Ghosty, he's going to get one of his lap backs, but I'm pretty sure he's been lapped twice. As we have Eddie now trying to catch up. Let's see if he comes into the pits or not. As Eddie has a drive-through penalty. That is a shock for Eddie. And in a moment, the Red Bull drivers have had their races turned upside down 18 laps into the race. Just over halfway through, and the Red Bulls, who are 2nd and 3rd for most of this race, has now had their luck turned on them completely, as one of them's crashed out, the other one has a drive-through penalty to serve. And this is great news if you're a McLaren fan, because Blade J is now going to go up the order. It's also good news if you're a Toro Rosso fan, because the white Red Bulls are going to go now up to where the blue Red Bulls were only a few laps ago. Also, if you're unhappy, you're going to be jumping for joy, ironically, as he's going to now potentially go up to P5. And depending on how the safety car restart goes for him, he could potentially go higher. Everyone having to catch up to the safety car. We have Pure Air as well ahead of Jack's GP. And Pure Air, if the start is anything to go by, it's going to be a very aggressive restart by the Aston Martin. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. See what happens then. I'm going to check Twitch chat, because I haven't checked all race, to be honest. There we go. Yeah, no problem, Solus Ginger. So, I just love racing, so yeah. Red, yellow, green, Bolivia. Thank you, Jota. Also, Jota. I love Jota. Come on. I just love the gold livery. And also, they're British as well. They're home heroes, so yeah. I do like Jota a lot. Like the WAC team. I've liked them since they were first Porsche customer cars back in 2024. Purely because Jenson Button was in it, and Will Stevens was in it, and Callum Milo was in it. Those were 3 drivers that I really liked. So since then, I've just liked Jota. I know obviously 2 of those drivers aren't there anymore, but still, it's a gold car, and it's now got a V8. You can't not love that. So yeah, we're just gonna have a look at Ravamp then. Ravamp, who has had a dominant race so far, he's led I think nearly every lap of this race. If not every lap of this race, then nearly every lap of this race. It's Rudeman subscribed with Prime. What does that mean? I do not know what that means. Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't know what subscribing with Prime. How do you subscribe with Prime? I've never seen that before. Subscribe with Prime. Oh well, anyway, that's, subscribed, yeah. I'm going to research what that means after this race. As meanwhile, Pure Air has just got a penalty. So we have Eddie with the drive-through that he has to serve at the green flag. So we'll probably see Eddie dive into the pits at the green flag. We're going to see Blade J, Lucky, The Rig, Unhappy, Pure Air, Jax GP, Soulless Ginger, Tien Walker, King Blue, Alpha Dead, and probably potentially Ghosty as well, all battle it out on this safety car restart. And whether they have penalties or not, I think there's enough time to be able to gap people from outside your penalty gap. Because for those who don't know, as you can see, it says 6S penalty, 3S penalty, 12S penalty. That means 12 seconds, or 9 seconds, or 3 seconds. But that means you only have 3 seconds added to your time. And so if, for say, Jax GP is behind Pure Air, if Pure Air is 9 seconds or more ahead of Jax GP, then Pure Air keeps the position, if you know what I mean. So that's what most of these drivers are going to have to do. But the safety car is in this lap then. The Revamp is going to restart this race here on lap 23. So let's see what happens. We don't have long to go. We have, I want to say, just over 11 laps to go in this race. What can happen? 11 laps to go when we cross the line, and there's already swapping of positions back in the field, and there's 3 wide further back. I'm not too sure what's happened there, but we're green yet again, and there's a very close battle here between the 2 Toro Rossos. As down the inside goes Unhappy, he's back in the mix for the first time since the early parts of this race, and he's battling the 2 Toro Rossos. As the Toro Rossos now side by side line astern heading into the second chicane. Meanwhile, we have, I believe, one of the Audis just getting ahead of Pure Air. Meanwhile, we head back up the field, but this will be the battle for second once Eddie serves his drive-through, and Eddie has to serve that drive-through within 3 laps of being given it, so he has to pit soon, so otherwise he'll get disqualified. As meanwhile, Lucky Lucas, should I say, trying to make the move on Blade J, and look at that, 3 wide in the background. Look at that, the 2 V-carbs, and the Cadillac who's gone steaming down the outside of the hairpin. As the Cadillac not able to make the move stick as of yet, but look at this foursome of cars heading into the last chicane here on lap 24. McLaren's, the 2 Toro Rossos, and the Cadillac. The Cadillac making up places. Unhappy up 3 places, diving into the pits. There goes, I think that was the McLaren. It was. Blade J's dived into the pits. Not too sure as to why. But now, this is a battle for third. Under contact there with Unhappy again. No damage as it looks on the Cadillac. But that was nearly another disaster for him in this race. While the Alpine here, we have the other Cadillac, a King Blue, trying to battle his way up the order. What utter madness here. Soulless Ginger now looking for a move on the Aston Martin. He's looking, but he can't quite get the move at least initiated into that chicane. Can he do that into this chicane though? He's looking to the inside. He's
somewhat sending it contact between the Cadillac and the Aston Martin, and now the Alpine of Soulless Ginger has been shuffled down the order, down into 10th. As now Alpha Dead has to watch out for Soulless Ginger, who dives in, and the Aston Martin gets hit by the Cadillac. King Blue clobbers into Pure Air. Pure Air loses no time at all. The Cadillac of King Blue loses 2 places. And now Soulless Ginger's back up into 8th, trying to get past Pure Air. Look at that, 3 wide nearly heading into this chicane. As down into the pits goes Pure Air. I'm not too sure why so many people are pitting in this green flag state. In the first 2 laps of this safety car, we've had a bunch of people pit. We've had Tia Walker pit, we have Blade J pit, and now Pure Air, as well as Eddie, who had to self that drive-through. Soulless Ginger now back up into P6 now, as we have King Blue and Alpha Dead with a lot of penalties, but provisionally in P7 and 8 before penalties are applied later on in the race. As now look at this, the 2 Toro Rossos are 2nd and 3rd. It's a great time to be a fan of these white Red Bull branded cars. And it's also a great fan to be a fan of a Cadillac, because Unhappy's in P4 and King Blue's in P7. Which, in contrast to earlier on in the race, oh, a contact between Eddie and Alpha Dead. Between the front and the front end of that Red Bull and the rear diffuser of that Aston Martin. And there's damage on that front wing of Eddie. As you can see, parts of that car is missing. But this Ford Red Bull trying to get ahead of the Aston Martin, 2 forces that used to be joined in F1 in the late 2010s with Aston Martin and Red Bull. Aston Martin used to sponsor Red Bull back in the late 2010s. As you'd see their logo on the rear wing of the Red Bull. Not anymore. Now they battle it out on track here in FCL. King Blue in the pits now. Another driver to make a pit stop in this after that safety car restart. And now look at the shake-up of the order that we have now after that safety car. Half the drivers that were up in the top 7 are now out of the top 7. With Eddie, who's now making a move on Alpha Dead to get back up into the top 7 and making contact and half spinning, round at the chicane. And now Blade J is going to go through on the Red Bull. Incredible stuff. So Blade J now up into a provisional 7th with the penalties for Alpha Dead. Absolute carnage then. So Eddie not able to make the pass and being spun by the Aston Martin. As now we have the Toro Rosso cars battling it out. A bit like in real life with Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad. Now it's Lucky Lucas and the Rig who are battling it out. And it's the big move by Lucky Lucas who gets himself ahead of the Rig. So nicely done there. Now we have Jack's GP in 5th. We have swap of positions here for the McLaren and the Red Bull. So have Blade ahead of Eddie. Eddie now behind the McLaren, who's now using a lot of battery and actually running out of battery heading into turn 1. So Blade J now is going to have to be a bit conservative on the battery. No, he's not. He's gone back up to 40%. The way these cars recharge battery is very instantaneous indeed. Down the inside goes Blade J, who gets ahead of the Aston Martin, but not for long. And now he's going to get overtaken by the Red Bull as well. So Blade J going for 7th, now down to 9th. As now Pure Air got overtaken by King Blue at the same time as well. So the Cadillac gets ahead of the Aston Martin. Meanwhile, the other Aston Martin has 2 very fast cars behind him. As Blade J and Eddie battling away. Eddie bailed out over the chicane there. And now rejoins the track behind the McLaren, who's now making the move back on the Aston Martin of Alpha Dead, should I say, as Blade J, should I say. Now being forced out wide by the Aston Martin, 3 wide nearly on the exit. But the Rig has also got back past his teammate for 2nd place. But also Alpha Dead trying to maintain 7th. And now going back past the McLaren, who has no battery to use at all. Look at that, 10% now. So he's having to charge away. There's now 30% battery for the Red Bull, which he's now using to try and recover the time lost over that chicane. As he took a bumpy ride over that chicane, over those sausage curbs. Meanwhile, we're going to have a look at the Aston Martin and the Cadillac. They're not doing anything, so we're going to look back at this battle. Absolute chaos here in Canada today. A great racetrack, proving itself to be one of the best tight racetracks you will find in Grand Prix racing. As
Alpha Dead now. All contact here between him and Blade J. Is into the third chicane. That's a big dive. Fourth chicane, should I say? A big dive there by Blade J, who gets back ahead of the Aston Martin. And now Eddie's coming through with a vengeance into the hairpin and getting ahead of both of them now, and now with a lot of battery to be able to hold them off. Meanwhile, battling between the Aston Martin and the McLaren, and there's nearly a huge airplane crash between the pair of them. But now Blade J gets back through. But now does he have the battery to defend against Alpha Dead? Alpha Dead now diving back up the inside and going into the pits. So that's the end of that battle for Alpha Dead. And now Pure Air gets ahead of the other Cadillac. So Pure Air getting ahead of King Blue and now going past his teammate as well. Let's have a look back at the V-car battle between the Rig and Lucky Lucas. So 5 laps to go here in this race. And these two now battling for second. They need to keep it respectful because they don't want to lose time battling. As out of the race for Alpha Dead. That's a shame for him. And it's a final 5-lap safety car. The Aston Martin of Alpha Dead has put it in the wall and has caused the final safety car in this race provisionally. So the second retirement in this race, and this is going to cause high drama as Revamp has missed the pit lane. So now into the pits comes one V-car. The Rig stays out. Unhappy's going to dive into the pits. Everyone's going to go into the pits for soft tyres now. Into the pits for Jax GP as well. He's going to the pits, and he gets a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. Jax GP with the same drive-through that Eddie got earlier on. And that's a shame. And Tion Walker's just got the same thing as well. So this safety car being the make or break for people's races here today. Alpha Dead has left the session after a very eventful race for the Aston Martin driver. Same can be said for his teammate. Let's have a look at the tyres then. There we go. So, we have... Let's see. Let's go through this from the topwards down. So, the leader of the race, Revamp, on the medium tyres. He's been on those medium tyres and done 10 laps on them so far. 11 laps when he crosses the line. The Rick has been on those medium tyres for 11 laps. Lucky Lucas has only just pitted for those softs. Same for Unhappy. Eddie's been on the mediums for 11 laps. Blade J's been on the mediums for 6 laps. As Jax has just pitted for soft tyres, but also got a drive-through for speeding under the safety car. As well, I believe Pure Air, as you can see, is on 5-lap old medium tyres. Then comes soft tyres for King Blue, but King Blue's been on those tyres for a couple of laps now, for 4 laps indeed. Then comes Soulless Ginger and Tion Walker, who have only just pit for those soft tyres. Then comes Ghosty, who has been on the mediums for, I want to say about 4 laps now as well, from what I've just seen on the graphic. So it looks like Revamp and the Rig are staying out on older tyres. Lucky Lucas and Unhappy on the brand new soft tyres. This is a big opportunity for the pair of them to potentially get up into second or better. If Revamp somehow is vulnerable on those tyres, I doubt it because he's been dominant all day so far. But if he is vulnerable on those older tyres, then this could throw his win into the air and potentially give that gold trophy that he has had his hands gripped to all day. This might be the nail in the coffin that loosens the grip on the championship, on the winner's trophy. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Is Unhappy there straddling over the grass with, I'm not too sure what happened there. He's not got any, has he got damage? No, he hasn't got damage. I'm not too sure what that was, but I just saw in the bottom corner Unhappy, looking a bit unhappy with the body language of his car. Meanwhile, as I was saying, this safety car for Revamp, because he hasn't pit for new tyres,
if Lucky Lucas doesn't fight too much with his teammate, Lucky Lucas could be right on the tail of Ravamp and potentially take his first win of the season and help his championship out massively. As Unhappy's going to definitely get ahead of Simi Boy in the championship, so that's P4 in the championship for him, as well as P4 in the race professionally as well. Eddie has actually now got a chance to redeem himself from that earlier penalty. Blade J as well, he has a chance to redeem himself from his... I'm not too sure why he went down the order earlier on, I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But from my memory, I think he must have pit. Jack's GP, he's got a drive through for speeding under the safety cars. What on earth's happened there with the V-carb? Unhappy and Lucky Lucas. Lucky Lucas has just gone trailing through the grass. Why that was, I will not know, to be honest. No damage on either car, but I definitely just saw Lucky Lucas travelling through the gravel there. Travelling through the grass, should I say. Very interesting indeed. Gonna ride on board. So we have the Mercedes with a safety car coming in at the end of this lap. So heading round that final hairpin, we're gonna take the tyre graphic off and we're gonna make sure you can enjoy the action for the last few moments in the race. I'll put the penalties on just so you know who will keep their positions and who won't. Here we go then, off we go, as the Mercedes has gone already, as Ghosty is holding up the pack, no one can overtake him, so Ravamp has the gap to get ahead, and now 3 wide with the lapped car. Over the line, as down the inside goes Lucky Lucas, he's now going ahead as well as Unhappy. Unhappy makes the jump on Rig as well, so Unhappy following Lucky Lucas through, and now making the move to the inside, and spinning! Nearly, so the Cadillac half spinning off of Lucky Lucas. And now Lucky Lucas ahead of the Rig. Rig now having to try and defend against Unhappy to try and help his teammate out, as he again just turns in and takes the Cadillac into the wall now. Incredible, he lets him through, I believe. That was very hairy stuff, and now the senior Red Bull car is going to get through as well. Eddie, he's got through on those medium tyres, but now gone deep himself, as now Soulless Ginger and Pure Air are battling out, and look at that, 3 cars nearly very close to each other. Soulless Ginger getting back ahead of the Aston Martin, as they head down the straight, the Aston Martin side by side with the Alpine car. Heading into the chicane there, the Audi into the pits, that's Jack's GP serving his drive through, that's going to pretty much end his race, along with Tian Walker. And now the Aston Martin of Pure Air has just lost the position to King Blue, who's just gone up into 8th. Meanwhile, the Rig is trying to get that position back on Eddie, but Eddie is not going to relinquish it, as Eddie, although he has front wing damage on the driver's right hand side, he's nearly putting the Rig in the wall heading through that section. And that is a section where we've seen many a driver have a humongous crash. Brendan Hartley springs to mind from 2018 at the start, when he collided with Lance Stroll in that section. But heading into this chicane then, down the inside for Blade J, a bit of contact with the wall for Eddie. They file their way through that chicane, but here we are on the final lap, and look at the battles ensuing. I don't think Blade J is going to be able to make a move. What about... No, I don't think there's going to be any more moves made. Look at that. The Rig trying to make a move, but not able to. He's going to use all his battery down the straight. But we'll come back to that in a minute. But Ravamp has been relentless and has dominated today. He takes the crown in Canada, ahead of Lucky Lucas, who got close but not close enough. Unhappy comes over the line to take a podium and to take at least P4 in the championship. Then comes Blade J, who gets ahead of Soulless Ginger, who gets ahead of Unhappy due to the penalties. Then comes the Rig, who gets ahead of Eddie at the end of that race. Then comes Pure Air, after one of the most eventful races I've ever seen for the Aston Martin driver. He gets P8 ahead of King Blue. Then comes Jack's GP, who gets a 20-second penalty for an unserved drive-through. That is an incredible race here in Canada for FCL.
we're going to see the extra awards for the drivers in due course, but that is Revamp taking his applause. The American driver took that win with a vengeance. Yeah, what a win that was then for the Mercedes driver, who gets ahead, who was ahead for the entire weekend. Took pole by 0.4 of a second and led every lap, and even when there were safety cars taking his massive leads and making them to none, he was able to build those leads back up again. As your race winner Revamp also had the fastest lap. Then comes your driver of the day, being Soulless Ginger. Unhappy had the most overtakes, and the cleanest driver was Blade J. So 26 seconds before this session ends. Thank you all ever so much for watching the FCL Canadian Grand Prix, and until I see you all next time, thank you all for watching or listening, and goodbye.